Welcome to The Thriving Mama, the podcast that teaches you not just how to survive, but to thrive in motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. Today, I'm going to share with you the number one reason the women I work with have hormone, mood, and weight issues, even when they have their stress under control. And it's actually pretty simple. It's nothing crazy. And when I ask people, they usually have no idea, but it is poor blood sugar management. And what that typically looks like is, you can get headaches, you can get hangry, you can be irritable. There are all sorts of, periods. You can have periods that are off, but quite often the moms who I'm talking to, especially when it's the first time I've seen them, either through functional medicine or the Thriving Mama program, it is, it kind of looks like the same scenario where they are crazy busy. They've got lots going on with their kids. They skip meals. They eat on the run as they're running from, practices to, different types of classes and school and whatnot. They're often, slamming coffee and carbs to try to keep up with their energy need. They have crashes in the afternoon. They can be irritable. They're not sleeping so well. And sometimes they're having bad periods. Most of what is happening during the chaos of that day is, their blood sugar is just going up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's not good. We need to have more stability in our blood sugar in order for it to function properly, but also for the energy that we consume to be properly utilized and then giving us, proper energy throughout the day. So that is what we will be diving into today. And the three highlights of what we're going to be discussing are, what does healthy blood sugar management look like? Number two is the three super simple recommendations I give to my patients to improve their blood sugar. And the last one is my three favorite supplements to support blood sugar, including one that acts very similar to Ozempic, which you all know has had a lot of press lately. Want to chat and get more personalized support? I'm offering podcast listeners a free 20-minute Thriving Mama check-in where we'll evaluate your physical, mental, and emotional health and provide useful resources to help you on your journey. You will find that link in the show notes. So if you've been listening to me over time, you know that I've made a point about talking about the key lifestyle factors that can sabotage even the best laid treatment plans. And just to recap, in episode 22, we talked about sleep. In episode 26, we talked about stress, which are both extremely important. But today we're going to be talking about blood sugar because in my 18 years of practice, it is the number one thing that I will see that sabotages somebody's, like I say, the best laid treatment plans, even if you have your stress under control, because blood sugar is affected by so many things. And in turn, if your blood sugar is not regulated properly, it will end up affecting many things like your energy levels and your brain function and your hormones and, your gut. There's so many things that have wide-reaching impacts due to dysregulated blood sugar. And so we're going to dive into all of that today. And I wanted to say that I am going to keep this very high level. We're talking like not even like the 20,000 foot level. We're talking like 50,000 foot level, because over those almost 2 decades of practice, I have realized that most people don't want to understand the nuances and the complexities of blood sugar or any biochemistry for that matter. People's eyes are usually glazing over when we're getting into the nitty gritty. Even when I'm interpreting labs, I always try to keep it very high level. So I am going to give you the pertinent information today, try to break it down into easily understandable information. And if you want to, get into some of the like nitty gritty of biochemistry, I always tell people, feel free, check out, you can look at basic, blood sugar pathways you can look at it on Google. There's a lot of charts that show it. There are good resources. Like one of my favorites, and I actually listen to him, is Chris Masterjohn, because he's great at really diving in deep and interweaving all of the complexities of the biochemical pathways. And so I just wanted to give you guys the preface that I'm not going to deep dive because I don't want to bore anyone. And truthfully, people usually just want to know, how can you help me? And not all of the nuance to what everything means. So we're going to start, with basically blood sugar 101. And so essentially what happens when you eat carbohydrates or sugar, your body breaks it down into glucose. And the process of breaking your kind of carbs and sugars down is called glycolysis. And that word literally means, like, glyco refers to the sugar, lysis refers to breaking. So it's literally the breakdown of sugar. And from that breakdown of sugar, it can be used to make energy or stored. The trouble, when we run into trouble, it's when that breaking down is not efficient, or the storage of your blood sugar is not efficient, and you have blood sugar, you have sugar circulating for too long. That causes a lot of issues. And so there's that. But also when your body loses its sensitivity to hormones like insulin that we're going to be talking about, that also causes issues too. So the kind of high level takeaway from there is, we want our carbohydrates and sugars to be broken down and then stored or used actively for energy. So, when things aren't working well, that's when you tend to get into trouble, because your insulin, which is secreted by your pancreas, it is the hormone of glucose transport. And what it does is it gets glucose into your cells, so then your body can use it for energy. And if that doesn't happen, that's what I was just referring to when your glucose tends to circulate in your body, and that would be high blood sugar. But something I wanted to explain again at a very high level is that there are several hormones that play crucial roles in the regulation of blood sugar in the body. And these hormones all work together to maintain glucose. We call it homeostasis. It's a fancy word for kind of balance, ensuring that your blood sugar levels remain in a relatively narrow range. So that's what your body's always trying to do. It's always to keep, its goal is always to keep things in a certain window that allows your body to operate optimally, but also maintain balance. So that's what your body is always looking for. So like I mentioned before, when people think about blood sugar, the primary hormone that they think about is insulin. And like I said, its primary role is to lower the blood sugar by facilitating the uptake of glucose into the cells, particularly into your muscle, where it will be used more quickly as energy, and then also into adipose tissue, which is fat, and that's stored energy. And the next hormone that is also it's produced in the pancreas as well, is glucagon, and it has the opposite effect of insulin. And when your blood sugars drop too low, glucagon is released to take stored sugar or glycogen. It will break that down to release sugar into your bloodstream. And so I'm not going to get into like there's a lot of fancy words surrounding these processes, but that is what happens to kind of keep your blood in balance. If you've been fasting for too long, for a while, and your body needs blood sugar, this is what's going to happen. It will also happen in states when you need extra sugar for energy. So that's where we kind of get into, how stress affects these pathways. And some other hormones that actually have an impact on blood sugar are the stress hormones. And because when you're stressed out, your hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are activated in that fight or flight response. And these hormones make it harder for insulin to work properly, which is called, there's a technical term for it, and it's insulin resistance. And this tends to happen when you have chronic stress and these hormones are chronically being liberated into your bloodstream. It's fine, if you're getting attacked by a lion out on the savannah and you need that energy, quick energy to run away or hide or keep your brain on alert, then that's great. But for a lot of us in modern society who have that chronic stress, it's basically a maladaptation. So it's actually a normal response to the body, but it's basically your body's adapting in a bad way, essentially. I don't want to say bad because that makes it sound like it's negative, but your body is adapting, which is a good thing. It's just adapting in a way that is not conducive to having healthy blood sugar levels. And so, like I said before, what it typically leads to is high blood sugar, which is known as hyperglycemia. And like I said before, in a healthy person, it's an adaptive response that allows you to have energy when you need it to deal with stress. But that chronically elevated blood sugar really can lead to insulin resistance, where your body, your cells just lose the sensitivity to respond. And so the sugar is not getting stored. And, that is bad because it leads to a lot of inflammatory issues in your body, but notably it affects a lot of the other systems in your body. So it's going to be, like I mentioned, it's going to be things that like hormones and brain function and energy levels and sleep and things of that nature. Something else I wanted to mention were the hormones of leptin and ghrelin. And I'm not going to dive into those deeply, but those are the ones that regulate appetite and feeling full. And that's part of what is activated with the medication Ozempic that I had mentioned earlier. You feel full for longer. So that's something that, happens in that case. But you want to have leptin and ghrelin also in balance, because you don't want to be feeling hungry all the time, nor do you want to be constantly feeling full, because then you're not going to eat enough, and then that can lead to low blood sugar. So now that we've covered kind of the very, very basics of the hormones that regulate blood sugar, I want to describe for you like the simple tips that I give my patients to help them when we see that they've got the dysregulated blood sugar. And that can show up in a lot of ways. I can typically tell just by looking at somebody's history, but on your serum labs, you can find some markers on your serum labs, on organic acids when we run those, on hormone panels. There's all sorts of ways that we can see that your blood sugar might be dysregulated. But these are the three main areas that I give people tips on. It's diet, stress, and movement. It's not even full on exercise, it's movement. So diet is number one. First thing, keep it simple, whole foods. Eat whole foods, not processed foods, not things that are coming out of boxes, just eat whole foods and have a diversity of them. Different meats, different plants, fruits and vegetables. I tell people to kind of keep their fruit intake to 2 servings per day, because there are some people who will, like, instead of eating vegetables, will eat all fruit. That's not necessarily going to support blood sugar either. And then healthy fats and making sure, through your plants, you're getting enough fiber. That's all going to lead to good blood sugar regulation. And when I say enough protein, I just recommend people eat protein at every meal, because that helps regulate the blood sugar. It helps keep your blood sugar from spiking. Same with fat, healthy fats like olive oil. I like butter and ghee. I see that in my practice, at least, most people tolerate those really well. I tend to have people stay away from seed oils because they are very inflammatory. Avocado oil, I do have people use. And sometimes if your body if it works well for your body, also coconut oil. But those, and then obviously nuts and seeds can also be a healthy source of fat too. So just making sure that you have all of those on your plate every time. When I'm working with people, sometimes we get into the nuances of their specific needs with regard to protein, because if you're very active, you're going to need more protein. Same with carbohydrates. You should be eating the carbohydrates to match your dietary and, activity needs. If you're super active and you're busy all the time, you're going to need more carbs, especially if you're working out, than a person who's mostly sitting all day. So, and then also the older we get, typically the less carbs that we need. So one person might need 50 grams of carbs a day and that'll work for them well. And then another person might need 100 grams or 150 grams. So a lot of it is understanding your, output or how much energy you're using, and then matching your carbohydrate and protein levels to meet that. And that's something that we do more specifically in practice. Another component of the diet is bitterness. Bitterness comes from spices. So you've got things like cinnamon and cardamom and coriander, turmeric, ginger. All of those are amazing because when you use those in your cooking, they all help modulate blood sugar. They also help modulate inflammation. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. Similarly, the bitter greens like kale, mustard greens, dandelion, arugula, radicchio, chicory, endive. There's lots of those. In the greens, the bitterness comes from a compound called a glucosinolate. And that they actually make supplements out of because it reduces inflammation. And also there are studies that show it is related to reduced incidence of cancer and all chronic diseases. The great thing about them is that the bitter receptors in your gut called TAS2Rs, they regulate the release of hormones that control your energy intake and your blood sugar and your gastric emptying. So they kind of act like that Ozempic that we were talking about, because that's similar to what Ozempic does. It's like a lot of these, they're called bitter agonists. When it's an agonist, it's something that supports a process. Basically what they can do is they suppress energy intake. So it makes you not want to eat quite as much. They improve blood sugar control. And like I said before, that delayed, I shouldn't say delayed, it slows gastric emptying. So eating bitter compounds is a really effective way to help control blood sugar. You'll see that a lot of blood sugar supplements contain one or more of these compounds. Typically, you'll see a lot of formulas with cinnamon in them, or turmeric, or ginger, or there's even extracts from, like I said, the broccoli family, that you'll see a lot of those in the blood sugar control products. The other piece for diet is eating meals regularly. If you're not eating regularly, it's going to be an issue. So I tell people fasting can be great for certain people, but that's not usually where we start when we're trying to correct somebody's blood sugar. That might be something that we look at down the road, but not immediately. What I'm typically having people do is strive for maintaining blood sugar control throughout the day. And that means eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I said, making sure that it has protein, fat, and the amount of carbohydrate that you need, and making sure that they're not spaced too far out. Like, I know moms tend to get really, really busy. And I know I've been guilty of this too. You get really, really busy and you forget to eat. That's not necessarily going to help maintain your blood sugar. And so eating regular meals is going to be super helpful. The next tip, number 2, is managing stress, which obviously we had the whole other podcast about that. I think that, like I said, was episode 26. So if you're looking into the stress component, go to episode 26. But I'm just going to touch on it because when you're stressed, the body prepares itself for what it needs. And if your insulin levels are falling and your glucagon and your adrenaline levels are rising, it allows glucose to be more readily available in the bloodstream. But if you have too much stress, you're going to have too much, sugar in your bloodstream. And that is going to lead to a lot of issues. So, like I said before, that surge of sugar is good if you need it, if you're in imminent danger and you need to run away, but not if, you're just sitting on your laptop working. So stress management is huge. And that is why I said, sometimes even when women have their stress managed, blood sugar can still be an issue, but because stress, it's a contributing factor, but it's not the only factor when it comes to blood sugar control. The last piece of the puzzle is movement, and it's not even crazy. Obviously, we all know that daily exercise improves body composition and it improves, insulin sensitivity and insulin and sugar utilization. But if I tell people, if you can't do anything, get up and walk a minimum of 5 minutes, but 10, 15 minutes after your meals, that is going to significantly improve your insulin sensitivity and sugar utilization. That it's like huge. It's literally the number one thing that I have people start doing. Like it's the easiest thing usually for people to implement. And you can also get the family involved, get your kids. So like bring your kids, make it a family thing. After dinner walks are often a great thing to do. So that's, those are my, simple recommendations. It does not have to be crazy. But if you're exercising, especially weight training, it's going to be even better because that is going to even further improve that insulin sensitivity and glucose utilization. The last thing I wanted to tell you about were my 3 favorite nutrients, or I should say it's more like 3 favorite supplements because some of them are combos that I use when people really need that extra support. And I like this combination because it's simple and they work synergistically together. The first one is a high quality multivitamin. And when I say that, it's going to have a good breadth of B vitamins. It'll have an adequate amount of vitamin D. It'll have zinc and inositol. Inositol is not one that you're going to find in most multivitamins, but it will, in a lot of the good quality ones, you'll find it. You get a lot of bang for your buck with these. I'm not going to get into, again, like the complex biochemistry, but the B complex vitamins and zinc are cofactors. So the cofactors in biochemical processes are like the nutrients you need to basically make that process move forward. And so that's really huge because a lot of the breakdown of sugar and getting sugar into the cells and then all of the different cells of your body and organs being able to utilize the energy and the sugar involve these B complex vitamins. And like I said, also zinc. Vitamin D in these multivitamins improves glucose transportation or movement around the body and also the actions of insulin. So it is also really important to blood sugar. And inositol, again, improves insulin sensitivity. It does a lot of other things too, but for our purposes right now, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about insulin sensitivity. So the multi in and of itself can help, but often isn't enough. So then I usually add in magnesium. And magnesium is huge because it's like the ultimate cofactor for biochemistry in your body. It's literally involved in hundreds of biochemical processes. And notably for blood sugar, it supports glucose uptake into your cells. And also it's a glycolysis cofactor. So if you remember before, we talked about glycolysis being blood sugar, like the breaking of the blood sugar down so it can be utilized by the body. So that's a huge one in my book. But also a bonus is that magnesium and the B vitamins in the multi also support hormone production and I would say also hormone excretion, like eliminating the hormones from your body, also supports neurotransmitters. So like those neurohormones, those brain hormones that help you do everything. They regulate mood, they regulate sleep, they regulate, even some of your hormones. So like that, though, that's huge. And having those nutrients are really, really helpful. The last supplement I recommend is berberine. And I usually use berberine combination products. There's a lot of press right now on berberine being called a natural Ozempic. And To some extent, that's true. They have some similarities, but it's definitely not the same because Ozempic is a drug. It's a GLP-1 agonist, and it actually it slows digestion. It delays, it really kind of slows gastric emptying and also strongly promotes insulin secretion. So that is part of what causes, the weight loss and the improved glucose utilization. But that's I'm not opposed to that. They work really well for certain people, but a lot of people just need some, kind of lifestyle modification like we're talking about right now. And that's why I really love berberine, especially berberine in combination with certain other nutrients. And so berberine in and of itself, it, promotes insulin secretion from the pancreas. It promotes insulin sensitivity. It promotes that glycolysis or the glucose breakdown. It promotes carbohydrate breakdown, and it activates an enzymatic process called AMPK. So those are all really important, and it can slow gastric emptying, but not to the extreme that Ozempic does. And so I wanted to lay those all out because those can be very helpful. And the one caveat I would give to you is that if you're on meds for controlling blood sugar, I don't recommend that people use any of these, but especially the berberine. Or if you have gastroparesis or delayed gastric emptying, again, I don't recommend people using that because it might make that more significant. I do have a very simple plan, and I'm going to put that link in the show notes where you can see exactly what I use. And then you could also get 10% off of any supplements if you are interested in trying those to support your blood sugar. There's actually a link to the supplements themselves and a protocol, and that link will be in the show notes. And just to recap, this blood sugar doesn't have to be crazy complex. Usually where I'm starting off with most people is the simple recommendations. Like I said, eating whole foods, lots of protein, fat, and veggies, eating enough carbs to sustain your goals, move your body, especially after meals, and supplement when necessary. You've got this.
If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.